Hello everyone, and welcome to my video showing all of my copies of the Beatles album Help. I think this is one of the Beatles' most underrated albums, and I just think it's brilliant. So let's get started with the monos. This is the first pressing, Variation A from 1965, and it has a Gowden Lofthouse sleeve. And here's the label. This isn't a brilliant copy. As you can see, there's a little bit of spindle wear and a few marks there, but that's nothing too bad. So the first pressings have the Gramophone Company Limited text on the perimeter, and has a sold in the UK text. And here's side 2. And here's the Variation B of that pressing. Now the only difference is that the P1965 has changed position slightly, so it's a bit further down, and it's also to the side a little bit. And now we have Variation C of the first pressing, so this is the third label variation. Again, it's very subtle, and the difference is located in exactly the same spot as the last record, and that is of course to do with the P1965. It is a little bit further down, however it's been corrected, so it's been put in line with the XEX, so it doesn't start halfway over, perfectly in line. Okay, so now we have the second pressing, which was pressed from 1966 until early in 1969. And here's the label. Now this label is completely different from those of the first pressing, because it now has the Times New Roman font rather than the sans serif font. Now the difference between this one and the Variation B, which I am about to show, is to do with the Beatles name here. Now the Beatles name is a lot smaller here than it will be on the Variation B. So here's the Variation B. Now it's exactly the same, as it has the Times New Roman font, and everything up here is still in the same place. However, if you look down the bottom there, the Beatles is a lot bigger than it was on the previous label. Right, now I'm sorry to say I actually don't have the next two mono pressings, and those are the 69 pressing, which is on the yellow and black Parlophone label without the sold in the UK, and also the one box mono pressing, because there was one of those for this album, and that is extremely difficult to get. So unfortunately I haven't got those two. However, I do have the fifth pressing, which I'll show now. This is from 1981 to 1982. This copy is actually the incorrect sleeve. This is a 60s sleeve with the 80s record, so that's a shame. However, I've got the correct record anyway, so I can show you the label. And here it is, of course without the sold in the UK and with the mono in the corner. Okay, so that's the monos shown for this album already, so we can start on the stereos now. So this is the first stereo pressing from 1965, also in a Gowden Lofthouse sleeve. And here's the label. Like the first mono pressing, it has the Gramophone Company Limited and the sold in the UK text. Side 2. Okay, now there is actually only one variation of the first pressing for the stereos, so I'll start showing the second pressings. So this is the Variation A of the second pressing. Now on this label there are a lot of noticeable differences. Firstly, like the mono version of this, it's on the Times New Roman font rather than the sans serif font. And also, it's got a very large stereo in the corner there. And now here's the variation B, which goes with that. Now here is the variation B. Now they've gone back to the sans serif font here, and they've changed the position of the publishing 1965 credit, so it's further down from the YEX. Okay, now this next copy I would say is probably the rarest in my collection, and I'll show you why that is. So every copy we've looked at so far, both mono and stereo, the designation in the top corner here has always been like an outline. It's not been filled in, just the outline of the letters. Whereas on this copy, it's a solid version, so it's a solid black stereo there. And this is also the 1969 pressing, which I'll show as well. Anyway, so the thing with these covers is, records with these covers were exported to military bases in other countries for sale there. So I suppose this is almost like an export cover, because these albums were sold in other countries in the military bases. So this is quite rare to get. I have seen a few of these, but they aren't easy to come by. So I was pleased to get one of these. And it's also got a nice record inside. And that is of course the 1969 pressing. And that does not have the sold in the UK text. Very nice condition, this copy. Right, so this next copy is the one box pressing, available from 1969 until 1970. And here is the label. Yeah, one box. And this has the Gramophone Company Limited text still for the perimeter. And here is side 2. This is a 5th pressing, available from 1971 until 1973. We still have flipbacks at this point, we haven't lost them yet. And this copy also does not have the stereo designation in the corner, so that's just blank. And here's the label, the 2 box, with the Gramophone Company Limited and the perimeter text still. There we go, side 2. This is a 6th pressing from 1976 until 1980, and this one does not have the flipbacks. And here's the label with the EMI Records Limited on the text there. Here is the 7th pressing from 1980 until 1984. Now here is the label, and this time it has the all rights of the producer for the perimeter text. Side 2. Here is the 8th pressing, available from 1984 until 1987. Now there is a big difference on this label, and that is of course that all of the writing on the label is huge now. It's really wide, which is very different to the previous 2 box labels. Now here is the 9th pressing from 1987 until 1991, and this is the Direct Metal Master, which is the one that advertises it for the 3 formats. However, there is a difference between this one and the Direct Metal Masters which I've shown for the first 4 albums in my other videos, and that is that it's stereo. So the first 4 albums had the Direct Metal Masters in mono, but every other album had it in stereo. I guess that's maybe just because they thought the first 4 albums might have sounded better in mono. I don't really know, but that's what they did. And here's the label. Now, this is actually a crossover pressing. So, side 1 has the usual Direct Metal Master label on, whereas side 2 has a label which is just the same as the record I've just shown. So this is sort of the 8th pressing label, and that's the Direct Metal Master label, and that's kind of shinier, so that's kind of the main difference between the two. But so that's a little crossover pressing, which is quite interesting. And here's the 2003 Harlem pressing, the one pressed in Holland, and this has the Apple logo on the back of the label. And here's the usual label for this pressing with the dish either side. And finally, I've got a French copy of the album. This is not a 60s copy though, as it's celebrating 20 years of the Beatles. Nice sticker on there. And this is stereo, and it's pressed by Pathé Marconi. And I'll show you the label. I've done a very nice Odeon label. Nice blue Odeon label. It's all in French as well, apart from the song titles, everything's in French. Okay, so that's the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be doing Rubber Soul next week, so I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Bye everyone.